We will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with us today. If you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show. Tweet it, post it. Every bit helps. Also, if you just go and leave a comment after the show, and there are several of you who do that already, but for anybody who doesn't, it does help out, and it lets people know that this is a good program to watch. Also, of course, if you want to tell your friends, family, that's awesome. So, as you can see, new information has been released related to the Arctic frost investigation. We are going to be talking about that. We've also got a new report confirming stuff that we've already confirmed previously, but now getting it on record, being able to prove that people are breaking the law in California, stealing IDs, stealing personal identifying information. It does not look good for the ballot signature signers. Now, also, my good friend Harry Horry from Unite for Freedom is here today. We're going to be talking about the latest findings of Unite for Freedom in Pennsylvania. They have a space that they're going to be doing tonight, presenting a good portion of the evidence. So we're going to give you a little preview of that. And we're also going to check back in and see what is going on in Texas, because for me, it looks like all the exact same stuff. So if you guys wouldn't mind, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, because we're getting started right about now. All right, my friends, welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to election security, just like my friend Harry Horry here at Unite for Freedom. Harry, it's good to see you, friend. How you doing?
Good to see you too, Zach. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. All right, so glad we could finally make it to get together. Last week, you guys had a couple of updates come out about Texas, but before the show started today, I saw that you guys also have a space scheduled for this evening talking about what appears to be similar findings in Pennsylvania. Can you give us a little bit of preview on what's going on in Pennsylvania?
So we've been interested in Pennsylvania for quite a while. There's a number of irregularities, HAVA violations, failure of your government to follow the law as written in Pennsylvania, much less the federal law. So we've been in a position of trying to figure out some of the things that are happening in Pennsylvania. And basically, we have started publishing a series of reports on vote tampering. The previous scorecard centered on whether or not people were properly registered, whether the people that are voting are properly registered, and whether or not there's a significant vote-to-voter discrepancy. And those are the things we've talked about before.
Yes.
In Pennsylvania. And frankly, Pennsylvania does a terrible job with regard to maintaining accurate voter registration rolls and making sure that the people that are voting are present because they have an accurate registration. So they used to have a really bad vote-to-voter discrepancy on an annual basis, but then we find something which often happens when we start looking in one place and let them know the errors appear somewhere else. So
right.
what we see in Pennsylvania is really terrible for the last 3 election cycles. But you know, in 2020, we find that after certification over the next 2 years, actually, there's over 200,000 corrections to the voter history.
And tell us exactly, when you say corrections, how do we define a correction?
That means an illegal change to the vote history. So
Right.
just to be clear, you can't make corrections without adjudication. There's no legal adjudication process in Pennsylvania to explain these changes. Until they're proven to be legal changes, they're illegal changes. So we call it vote tampering because that's what it is. And so interestingly, in 2022, the numbers are a little bit more moderate. We expect maybe they didn't have to cheat as much as they cheated in 2020, because of the Biden election and whatnot. But then we find an explosion of the vote tampering in 2024. So even though the vote-to-voter discrepancy seems to go down, the number of votes that get changed in the first year after certification, this means they've gone into the official federal record of who voted. Official. It's a federal record. It's not to be tampered with. It's part of HAVA, part of NIVRA, National Voter Registration Act, part of the Help America Vote Act, because all of the requirements of NIVRA, the National Voter Registration Act, are subsumed into HAVA. So violations of NIVRA become violations of HAVA. And we've complained about this directly. Due to a number of legal missteps, we ended up with our first adventure suing Pennsylvania with not a particularly robust outcome. But we've learned from these journeys down this path. I mean, the judiciary is arrayed in a way that they don't really want to pay attention to election law. They don't want to hold anybody accountable. But in 2024, they go from 139,000 changes in 2022 to 2,039,000 changes in the following 2 years. So not in the first year, but in the following 2 years. It's unbelievable what they're expecting us to take. I mean, it's, do all of those represent direct election fraud? It's hard to say exactly, but the fact of the matter is, when you change an election record, you're tampering with an official federal record. And at a minimum, let's say they're all innocent mistakes, which you and I both know they're not innocent mistakes, particularly when they bloom out of control after we start pointing out the registration errors and pointing out the vote-to-voter discrepancy in 2024. This mishmash of changes to the voter history occurs, and it's just incredible. Now, there's a lot of talk about our findings in Texas. We find hundreds of thousands of changes. There's a big story about Bexar County and what appears, at least to some people, to be a smoking gun. I haven't seen the data or analyzed it myself. We're very strong peer-reviewed data analytics people. Until I understand the whole story there, I'm not going to say whether I believe it or not. That's not the point. But we find the same kind of missing voters at a much larger scale in Texas. It pales in comparison to what Pennsylvania did in 2024. 2 million vote changes. I can't even imagine what that means. So, in terms of outcomes, in terms of the lack of control, the lack of certifiability, the lack of anybody's knowledge even who won anything in 2024. And, as we know, we have a very hard to control liberal government in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro and President Trump aren't exactly good friends, but that's neither here nor there. Somebody needs to explain why we have these vote tampering situations. Like I said, totally out of control at a massive scale, bigger than any other state really that we've examined so far. We continue the type of studying. I'm sure it's big in other states. But the fact of the matter is that this finding is staggering, that they're changing votes. And by the way, why would they change them? Just to be clear, 193,000 of these changes occur the following year. So it's 2 years after the election.
Wow.
So now some of them will be, stories about voters that have moved and this type of thing. This isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about the change in the status of the voter. the voter hasn't been removed. The voter history is gone. So
from like eligible to ineligible or inactive or something like that?
So we have four types of changes, changes that occur, that they showed originally a no voting, and then suddenly a year later they show a vote. For instance, at the certification time 1 year later in Pennsylvania, there have been 1,835,000 voter histories changed to show a vote. So at the time that they certified the election, they had, in theory, 1,835,644 votes that were added to individuals that previously, at the time of certification, showed as not having voted. It asks all sorts of questions. How can you certify an election where your voter history information is out by almost 2 million votes? Let's just say they're missing. But why is the vote to voter discrepancy not 1.8 million votes? The reason is they've moved them. You understand that, right? So the vote tally stays the same, but who voted changes. So there's really no explanation other than a massive system error that's being covered up, which we don't believe. We can't envision a regular data processing practice that would result in this level of error, or they're actually modifying the vote history to wash out the ones that they had the vote attached to originally. So
that's the only thing that makes sense, is that there has to be some like direct manipulation by an individual or a team of individuals. I mean, what you're describing is so grossly outside of the acceptable margin of error. If this was a corporation, let alone our election system, let's say it was a corporation. If something like this was detected, whomever it was, the vendor that was providing these services, they would be immediately fired, if not leading to perhaps criminal charges or, some type of civil infractions, fines, lawsuits. I mean, this is just so disgusting. I just, every time I hear about these things, the knowledge that they're existing, ongoing on a regular basis, and we're essentially told every single time that we don't have the right to ask, or like we shouldn't be asking. These things don't happen, so why are you even worried about it? But they're clearly happening, and it must be attributable to something or someone.
It's attributable to something, and somebody thinks it's important enough to clean it up without talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That pretty well tells you that someone believes they're at least in big trouble, and they're trying to cover it up. Now, the fact of the matter is the cover-up is not legal. It's a federal crime. This level of mischief with regard to federal record tampering is criminal by itself. If they've certified the election with this level of uncontrollability, the certification itself is clearly, and I'm not talking about the theoretical limit on the number of ballots that can be out of control. I'm just talking about the common sense interpretation as to whether an unknown votes attributed to voters without any knowledge at all about how they quote voted, right? So what exactly are they doing? We are digging deeper, and we do know the records that were changed, so we're examining those at depth, and we believe that we'll find a fairly major amount of mischief there. Whether we can prove that it affected races, or that's not really the case. What I talk about all the time is when you're standing on a corner and there's a dead body with 3 bullet holes in the chest and blood all over the sidewalk, there's been a murder.
Right. They
murdered our elections. And some reason, somewhere, some idiot judge in the country decided we don't have to enforce the law because citizens have no standing in the outcome of elections. Are you nuts? The third statement in the Constitution says we have a right to elect our representatives, and they're stealing that right from us. So we've partnered with Greg Stenstrom and Leah Hoops and some of their litigation.
Good.
We're sharing our data with them we've tried to get a couple of the other election integrity groups to join us in Pennsylvania. So far, they haven't, but we welcome them as well. But the fact of the matter is we intend to hold these people responsible. They're committing crimes against the United States. They're committing crimes against the citizens of the United States. Frankly, Pennsylvania, by destroying the integrity of their election, are committing crimes against all the other states, which Paxton tried to argue, by the way, in 2020.
Yes.
Probably didn't do it as elegantly as it should have been done, but that's hindsight. The fact of the matter is this kind of mischief has existed, and we have known its existence for over 6 years. And so we have to do something about it. And
yes.
We are making criminal referrals to the DOJ with this data.
Good.
We have not done it yet. We're doing it. We're naming names as to who is responsible in this chain. And if we have to start putting election officials and state executives in jail, I say we have to do it. There's no choice. I mean, we have such an egregious set of violations here. We have a release coming up on, excuse me, many other major states, New York, California, Illinois, Michigan.
Good.
We've done one in Texas, as you know. And the blue states and red states and the purple states all have this mischief inside. I'm not even saying that the election officials know about it, but the fact that they're ignoring it for all these years gives them some level of culpability. They've been told about this now for 4 plus years in the election cycle, but really going on 6 quickly.
Well, Harry, it's like your analogy of the murder. If you see your neighbor shoot his girlfriend in the front yard and you know with certainty, or even just suspect that the murder took place, and you choose to do nothing about it, you too can be held criminally liable for not doing anything about that murder. There was a comment in the chat that I wanted to point out. One top rater, I believe, said something like, you would think the current administration would have done something. Well, Harry, Pennsylvania is one of many states that is currently being sued by the Department of Justice to gain access to their voter rolls. I think that one thing that people perhaps have a misconception about is that the federal government has unlimited authority to just walk in and take whatever they want at any point. I mean, there is a process that goes along with this, and we did just see the DOJ, the DNI, and the FBI go down to Fulton County, Georgia, and seize a lot of election-related material. They went and did the same thing in Maricopa County, Arizona. I would assume that Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, California, those would most likely, in my book, be on the list of places to go. But another problem we have is the corruption that's currently rotting through the district courts, through the judiciary. The corruption, frankly, in the Senate, we have many different jurisdictions where we simply don't even have U.S. attorneys because they haven't been confirmed yet. And we've seen the temporary appointments like Lindsay Halligan or Alina Habba. Those cases have been thrown out by the corrupt judges because they make the claim that their appointments were invalid. So I feel like the government, or our government, this administration has been doing a number of things to address this stuff, but it is a much larger and obscured problem that I think a lot of people realize. I mean, Harry, you guys have been looking at this for many, many years, and I feel like, it's taken a lot of time to even get to the point where you can put your finger on certain things because there are people hiding this.
Right. This is a purposeful, orchestrated effort at multi-layer fraud. And the current administration, the current DOJ, remember, they're only a couple of years into this, right? This isn't like they've been at this for a long period of time. And frankly, they had to get rid of a lot of people, and then, as you say, the nominated replacements are being slow walked, blocked, told that they're illegal. And the fact is, it's been very, very difficult to do these investigations, prosecute the ne'er-do-wells. I mean, that requires an investigation. I mean, look at the number of, actual murders that take a year or 2 years to discover who the assailant was. We know we have a dead body here. Who killed the elections? That's the challenge. Yes. So you have to do this all, and not to be critical of other organizations. Everybody out here is fighting hard, but there's a difference between gathering suspicions or concerns and gathering evidence.
Right.
And so what happens is a lot of people see things that are wrong, but they don't have, they don't have the credibility that they need. They don't have the background they need to be a reliable witness. And I don't mean reliable in the sense of lying or whatnot, but reliable in the sense of perhaps misinterpreting or being able to be attacked successfully on the stand,
right?
Which makes it very hard to bring a case against those people. We, on the other hand, we do forensic investigations. Some of us, we have real data analysts that have been at it for decades, and we're providing evidence. And we work with the DOJ on a regular basis, giving them our data. But based on these tampering reports, which are just coming out now, we think we've crossed, any boundary of sensible construction that it's clerical or administrative neglect into actual purposeful tampering and purposeful voter fraud. So, And for some reason, they think that the law requires purpose. It actually doesn't. Voter fraud is a construction of not obeying the law.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with intent as it applies to, regular statutes on fraud. But we allow the mainstream media to, continue to lie about what election fraud really means. But this is egregious in Pennsylvania. We are, we're filing. We haven't quite done it yet, but it'll be filed yet this week. Our criminal complaint. We don't actually have the authority to accuse individuals of crimes, but we certainly can spot the people in the decision chain that should be in control of this. So
absolutely.
I hope that the DOJ takes this seriously. I know they're taking very seriously enforcement of HAVA provisions under federal law. Most people think that HAVA is weak from a statutory provision standpoint. But if anybody wants to look at it, Section 900 of the original Help America Vote Act has very broad criminal provisions. So failing to follow election statutes, particularly as embodied in HAVA and NIVRA, are actual criminal acts.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're going to be testing some of these things out, I believe. I mean, that's at least a theory that's being espoused. And,
certainly. And
we're in full support of that if this comes out. So.
Well, I think pretty much everybody is. I mean, it's high time. I mean, I've never known any of those particular I've never known HAVA to be used against anybody, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's there. It's real. It's just we need people with the balls to do it. And I feel like, figuratively speaking, Harmeet Dillon at the Civil Rights Division, she appears to have the necessary chutzpah. Now, any possibility of maybe filing an amicus brief in the DOJ's case against Pennsylvania? I mean, you've got excellent reasoning, I would imagine, why it makes sense for Pennsylvania to be forced to hand over all of their, at least their voter registration information, but certainly much more related to elections there. So
we've looked at filing amicus briefs. We're certainly ready to do so if anybody from inside suggests a willingness to incorporate them into their argumentation. I mean, we don't want to, it's quite expensive and time consuming to file a good amicus.
Oh, okay.
And a good amicus. Now, sometimes we can introduce concepts or arguments that the DOJ can't with regard to civil rights because we're individuals or citizens, not the federal government. So we have the ability to talk about a broader range of infringement upon our rights than the federal government, even though the federal government is supposed to be protecting our rights. There's some narrowness with regard to the application of that law in court. So we certainly are looking at amicus briefs. We've offered to help anybody that's fighting, including private actors across the country. We have 35 states worth of scorecard data. We have a number of states coming on with regard to these tampering reports. We've got the low resolution tampering reports, we call them, the afterlook on quite a number of states. That's where we, compare the time-stamped voter histories that we have near to the time of certification to what they look like a year and then, when possible, 2 years later. So obviously our 2024 data just, recently ripened to the point of being in the neighborhood of 2 years. It's still short of 2 years, but
well, relevant either way. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, Harry, I really appreciate you. Tell everybody where they can find the work of Unite for Freedom, and what time is that space tonight?
Yeah, I knew you would ask. I believe it starts at 7 Eastern. But
okay.
I may be speaking out of turn, but you can find it on our website, which is Unite, the number 4 freedom.com. Unite for Freedom with the number instead of the word. And obviously, we need your help. We need your time and treasure. We need particularly data analysts. We need paralegals. We need people that know how to write. We need to expand our reach. We've done a massive amount of work compared to most organizations, but we've always emphasized evidence over talking. And now we have the ability with a favorable Department of Justice to start having a real effect, we believe. So if you want to help us step up, we need your money, we need your time, or just your prayers. So it's, anything helps all the time. So God willing, we will persevere after all this country is founded on the concept of freedom. Excellent. And don't act soon, we will lose that freedom. And it's the inevitable crisis that all republics and democratically inspired institutions suffer from over a long period of time. If you had told me this is where we would be in 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. But we slept. We thought we were okay. We had, torn down the Berlin Wall, particularly my generation, and here we are suddenly fighting in my terms the greatest crisis our country has ever faced since the Revolution and the Civil War. So
I don't think many people would disagree with you, certainly not in this audience. All right. Well, Harry, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you, and the audience appreciates your work as well, and I'll be tuning in later tonight, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the near future.
Sounds great.
All right.
Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. All right, everybody, thank you so much to Harry Horry for joining us and giving us an update on the continued work of Unite for Freedom and the findings in Pennsylvania and the update on what's going on in Texas. If you, again, want to follow them, you can do that right here on X. It's at Unite, the number 4 Freedom. And then their website can be found in the bio of their X account, uniteforfreedom.com. All right, you guys, let us begin with our next story. We're actually going to stick with elections for a little bit. We're going to head on down to Georgia, since I brought Georgia up in that conversation with Harry. What we have here is, of course, Georgia Senator Dolezal, and he's actually running for lieutenant governor right now, and he is discussing some information that he came across in regards to Dominion voting systems. These are internal conversations related to employees of Dominion voting systems. Very briefly, before we hear this clip, let me give you this special message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, Harry said it himself, the United States is at a crisis point, an inflection point, and right now we're also just happening to come up upon America's 250th birthday. That's a huge milestone. Not a lot of civilizations, governments make it that long. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the story behind it all. And there is, of course, a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday. It's honestly a great way to introduce your kids to how America began, who those founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for are still as relevant today. This guide sends those kids back to the moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab for them. And the best part is that it's completely free. You just pay $2 for shipping and handling, so you can get it by heading to freeusabirthday.com. That is is freeusabirthday.com and pick up that kid's guide to America's 250th birthday for your kids or grandkids today. America's story matters. Make sure that the next generation knows it. You can also use that QR code on screen if you're over there on Rumble or you see it on your screen. Thank you very much to the folks at Rumble and freeusabirthday.com. All right, continuing here, let's hear from Senator Dolezal.
Burt Jones and I, the lieutenant governor, and a couple members of leadership, as we were pushing to update from 5.5A when these vulnerabilities essentially were exposed, we not only had one-on-one meetings with the secretary, but we actually had meetings with Dominion themselves. And we were, in my real life, this state senator thing's a part-time deal. I'm in the software development business, and I've owned a technology company with my partners for 20 plus years. And when we talked to the Dominion team about their lack of white hat testing, and we talked to them about their testing procedures and protocols, it was shocking. Like, it was shocking. We don't write mission critical software per se. But we write video presentation software that's used to run displays at the NFL draft and the Olympics and United States Congress. And so we've got to get it right. And so I know the QA team and the amount of testing that our team does. And when I compared that to the answers that I got when I was asking questions of Dominion, it was pretty shocking. And you know, we're Dominion's largest customer here in Georgia. We're the only state that uses them statewide. And when they released version 5.17 of the software, their testing process was so inadequate that they realized that the no-wink pull pads, which is the check-in pad that we use that gives you the card that you put in the Dominion machine, wasn't compatible with the newest software. I'm like, guys, how in the world does that happen? Like, in what testing environment are you not testing compatibility for your largest customer, your only statewide customer? That's the one you got to make happy. And so I think that some of this just falls to straight incompetence. More so perhaps than even nefarious actors. Some of this stuff is just a low bar that was set. But yes, we met with the secretary. He and I are somewhat at odds publicly because I continue to ask questions. Even this year in the appropriations hearings, I asked questions about his preparation for the 2026 election because he's under a legal mandate to not use the QR code. And I said, what are your plans? How are we going to vote in November? And the answer was, there is no plan and we don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, sir, it's January. We got to get this rolled out. And so I think probably the days of the one-on-one meetings are over.
It's not a bug. It's a feature. I disagree with Senator Dolezal only on his point that this is straight incompetence. You know, there is something to be said for incompetence in government contracts. Dominion knows that they're going to get paid no matter what. Dominion knows that the state of Georgia and all of the other states where they provide services are going to be using their machines. They're going to be using their software, and there is no competitor. It's essentially a monopoly. So in a situation like that, what reason to innovate or to give a working product do you really have? Because it doesn't matter. The money's there. Even if the election goes sideways, people are going to make excuses for it. People are not going to be able to sue in the public. And the election material witnesses are the people who also want to make sure that these things are kept on the down low. They do not wish for the situation to be fixed, because if it was fixed, then we would have secure elections. We wouldn't have a situation where we have to worry about a vendor that is providing substandard products. We wouldn't have to worry about a vendor that may be siphoning off our election data and pushing it to another country. We wouldn't have to worry about any of the things that currently plague the variety of my viewers on a nightly basis. Now, Greg mentioned something about the QR codes. Well, Garland Favorito posted this in direct relation to those QR codes. So the Georgia House of Representatives altered a Senate election bill last week that would extend the use of QR-coded ballots generated by the ballot marking devices for the 2026 election. The original bill, SB 214, that had passed the Senate and crossed over to a House committee, required the use of hand-marked paper ballots similar to absentee mail-in ballots for any people who were voting. However, the House Government Affairs Committee substitute bill delays require replacement of QR-coded ballots until 2028. So they're just not going to bother to do it for a couple of more years. Another election goes down the tubes. Now, the inventor of the risk-limiting audit used by Georgia has testified in court and written to Georgia officials since 2018 that risk-limiting audits cannot effectively audit these ballot marking device systems. And ballot marking devices offer no original source of voter intent, and there is no way to audit whether or not they displayed races correctly to the voter. Again, it's a feature, it's not a bug. Ballots produced by Georgia's Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5 voting system have QR codes that contain the votes for tabulated results. In October 2020, a U.S. District Court found the system in violation of 2 Georgia statutes requiring voter verifiability and human-readable text. It was on page 81 and 82. Now, after Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger did not address the issue, the General Assembly passed a more explicit statute in 2024 to ban the use of QR code voting no later than July 1st of 2026, which would make it so that you could not use it in the upcoming midterm elections. Now, QR code vote tabulation also conflicts with a voter verifiability statute from the 2002 Help America Vote Act. In fact, President Trump signed an executive order, 14248, in March of 2025, which ordered the U.S. Election Assistance Committee to ban QR code vote tabulation. Yet the House now proposes that Georgians continue to use a QR coded system for these 2026 midterm elections. Now, the House committee ignored recommendations of its own election study committee to hand count the verifiable text of all 2026 QR-coded election ballots to ensure security and accuracy. It also ignored VoterGA voting system security recommendations submitted to the study committee on November 4th of last year. And the House reversed itself after objections from the Georgia Association of Voter Registration and Elected Officials, which claim to represent county election directors. A VoterGA survey identified that only about a dozen of 159 counties confirmed that they even support Gavrilo's position. Now, Gavrillo offered no solution. They argued it was too late for the 2026 general election changes. However, in 2002, Georgia moved from disparate systems to a paperless, unverifiable, direct recording environment system in 6 months after signing a contract on May 3rd. A U.S. District Court found that the DRE system was constitutionally deficient in 2019. So for that entire time, they were using something that was not in line with the Constitution. But perhaps more importantly, the SB 214 substitute bill version authorizes the purchase of a new unsecure voting system that allows existing security threats to continue indefinitely. In spite of the known security issues, the House substitute bill authorizes funds for the purchase of a new foreign-made proprietary voting system that can be remotely accessed. It does not mandate compliance with U.S. critical infrastructure guidelines. SB 214 offers ballot-on-demand printing as an option to replace the BMDs, but it has no requirement for ballot identifiers to help detect fraudulent duplication of any type of ballot. It does not allow for adequate emergency ballots in election day precincts if ballot-on-demands fail, as they did in Arizona in 2022. VoterGA co-founder Garland Favorito said the following: "The Secretary of State failed at his job. Then SB 214 was transformed from a voter bill to a vendor bill. SB 214 is now in the House Rules Committee, where it can still be improved to add critical security provisions. And once the bill passes the House, it will return to the Senate, where they will have a chance to disagree and add sorely needed measures to secure future Georgia elections." I would believe that that's likely what is going to end up happening, because the Georgia State Senate appears to be far more concerned with the concept of election security and making sure that the people of Georgia are clear and 100% crystal on who it is they're electing and what their ballot actually was recorded as. So Garland Favorito, another voter integrity, voter security group, at Voter Georgia that I follow. I interviewed him several years ago. He's another great conversation, so I would suggest that you follow him as well. 417 Patriot, hey, she says, I am going to the Missouri State Capitol tomorrow with my daughter's school, and we are getting to meet Senator Mike Moon. Have heard he's supposedly a good one. Do you know much about him? Any thoughts? I actually don't know anything about him, but I would ask anybody in the chat, if you're from Missouri, if you know Missouri Senator Mike Moon, then please tell 417 Patriot about it in the chat. I personally haven't had any interactions with him, but I'll go ahead and check him out. We'll see what I can find. Thank you to Sean Joe for a cookie and a can. Thank you to No Thanks Joe for a cookie, who says, good Tuesday to you, Lisa and Zach. I hope that you both are doing well. Thank you for your diligence in reporting and for keeping us properly informed. God bless and be safe. Thank you to you, my friend. Appreciate you being here. Sean Joe, thank you for a can as well. And then thank you to Trump One for the cookie. I appreciate it. All right. Now, this is unsubstantiated rumor at this point because I haven't actually seen the text of the bill, but President Trump was asked about it as he was speaking in the Oval Office earlier today. Allegedly, Leader Thune has a deal that's going to allow senators to go on their 14-day paid vacation. It would restore funding for the TSA in exchange for stripping out the ICE enforcement funding from the DHS bill. This compromise would also allegedly kill the Save America Act and give states money if they implement voter ID, but it removes any requirement to check that voters are actually citizens. But, of course, the good news is that the Senate gets to go on paid vacation still. This is bullshit. Now, when President Trump was asked about it, he didn't say positive or negative one way or the other. A reporter simply asked, here there's a deal that's being made for the Save America Act. And he said, well, I'm going to look at it, but he's made it very clear what he wants, and it is definitely not this. John Thune, I'm sorry, I still think he is a traitor to this country. Anyone in his position who refuses to use the power at his disposal to get this done. This is what needs to be done. We have got to have this on the books. Obviously, he does not care about the United States of America. Now,
an election judge from
here is an excellent reason why it is so necessary that we have the SAVE Act and a host of other election security measures. An election judge in northern Minnesota has just pled guilty. He admitted to letting 11 unregistered voters cast their ballots last November. Now, what's really crazy about this is that in Minnesota, you have same-day registration. Why in the hell would you set yourself up like that unless those people were illegal and unable to get registered to vote? But take a listen to this. What a klutz.
An election judge from northern Minnesota who's charged with letting 11 unregistered people vote last election has pleaded guilty. 65-year-old Timothy Schouten from Nevis told people to go ahead and vote without using the on-site registration forms. A different Hubbard County election judge turned him in.
Good.
The Minnesota Secretary of State called the allegations extremely serious. Schouten will be sentenced in May. I'm Lou Ragoose. Follow for more news.
All right. Well, now, if we didn't have same-day registrations, if we had proof of citizenship and proof of identity at the time of voting, and you had to register to vote in advance, something like this wouldn't happen, and this guy would be able to stay out of prison. But for whatever reason, he decided he wanted to go to prison. Darla says, happy Taco Tuesday, everyone. Thank you, Darla. Appreciate you. All right. Now, it would appear that someone has set a series of explosive devices around a Fort Washington park in Maryland. On Sunday, 5 explosive devices were discovered, and the Prince George's County Fire Department and bomb squad were called into the scene to neutralize these devices. There were 2 of them that were initially discovered, suspicious packages in the woods. Less than 24 hours later, additional explosive devices were discovered at the park, and they had to send the bomb squad out yet again. Now, the Prince George's County Fire Department stated that 5 devices were rendered safe before operations were suspended after sunset. This morning, additional explosive devices were located. So 5 were found. Additional devices were discovered. How many? Why is someone setting off bombs, or why is somebody setting bombs at a park? Are these to grab and then use someplace else at a later date? Were they hoping that children or perhaps people running on trails were going to walk by these explosive devices and then they were going to go off and they were going to kill somebody? These additional explosive devices were found, and the crews at Fort Washington Park just said that there were several more. We don't know the exact number. Now, the ATF said the devices will be taken to their laboratory in Beltsville, Maryland, and the police are advising people to continue keeping a lookout to see if anything else may be placed. But at this point, they believe they found all of them. Highly, highly distressing. All right. Now, what else is highly distressing is this former UN judge and also former Columbia University professor, Lydia Mugambe. She's a Ugandan lawyer, and she was convicted of facilitating a breach of UK immigration law. She arranged to have people travel to be exploited. Basically, she had people that she was using as modern-day slaves. She was serving as a high court judge in Uganda beginning in 2013, and then a judge on the UN International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals. That's the successor body to the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. She's been on that court since May of 2023, but she was actually convicted last March in 2025 at Oxford Crown Court on 4 very disgusting charges: conspiracy to facilitate a breach of UK immigration law, arranging travel with a view to exploitation, requiring a person to perform forced or compulsory labor, and conspiracy to intimidate a witness. Now, in terms of Columbia University, she was a fellow at the Institute for the Study of Human Rights. In 2017, she was studying for a doctorate in law at Oxford University at the time that she was caught bringing people in and forcing them to be human slaves for her. Now, she had met this victim in Uganda. That victim was 19 years old and was employed by her as her nanny and maid. Mugambe relocated to the UK on a Tier 4 student visa. That's a category that did not permit her to sponsor a worker, but she arranged to bring that victim to continue in that role in violation of UK law. Because she lacked the legal right to sponsor a visa, she conspired with John Leonard Mugerwa, that's the Deputy High Commissioner of Uganda to the UK. He agreed to sponsor the victim's entry under a diplomatic servant scheme. Now, false employment contracts and a false certificate of sponsorship were created, stating that the victim would work as a paid housekeeper at the Ugandan diplomatic residence. The intention from the outset, apparently, was that the victim would instead live and work unpaid at Mugambe's private home. Now, the quid pro quo for the participation of Mugerwa for providing those false documents was that Mugambe would assist him in a court case in Uganda in which he was a defendant. The sentencing judge found that Mugambe made multiple attempts to contact the Ugandan judge that was handling Mugerwa's case, and that judge refused to take her calls. Mugambe later told Mugerwa that the judge had not returned her calls because the judge fears talking on the phone. The court treated this statement as evidence that she was aware that the contact was improper and that what she was going to ask was likely illegal. Now, Mugerwa himself was not charged because the Ugandan government declined to waive his diplomatic immunity, despite the Crown Prosecution Service having authorized a conspiracy charge against him as well. Unfortunately, because he had that immunity, he could not be charged unless the government of Uganda decided that it would be okay. Now, once they were in the UK, the victim was required without pay to cook, clean, and provide childcare, only to receive food and, of course, a room to lay her head. Mugambe confiscated the victim's passport and biometric visa card. Over time, Mugambe increasingly restricted the victim's ability to take outside employment when it conflicted with domestic demands. And the victim eventually recovered her documents, contacted a friend, alerted police, and officers received a tip on the 10th of February in 2023 that a woman was being held in servitude at Mugambe's home in Kidlington, Oxfordshire. Once she was arrested, Mugambe violated her bail conditions by organizing attempts to contact the victim through her niece, who was a legal researcher, the victim's pastor, and the victim's mother. Messages recovered from the electronic devices seized in a raid on Mugambe's home in August of 2024 documented the scheme. In one message, Mugambe instructed that the victim's mother should convince her to stop betraying us. Stop betraying me for making you a slave. How dare you expose me for being a disgusting human rights violator? Now, in another instance, she wrote the victim that if the victim told the police she had dropped the matter, they have no case to take to court. Meaning, if you just tell them that you don't want me to be prosecuted for keeping you as a human slave, then I don't have to worry about anything. But anyways, the trial actually happened, and the the Oxford Crown Court ran from February to March of last year. At sentencing on the 2nd of May of 2025, Judge Foxton assessed Mugambe's culpability as medium, noting significant planning and premeditation, but finding that this was not a case involving a criminal hierarchy. It was just one bad apple, I suppose. Harm was assessed at a Category 3. The UK courts are way different than American courts, but the victim did suffer psychological harm and ongoing fear, and the exploitation ran for approximately 18 months. Now, the judge found no remorse. Of course she didn't, and noted that Mugambe continued to characterize herself as a victim. I'm a victim here. Why am I being persecuted for keeping slaves? She described her account to police and to the court as thoroughly dishonest. Now, mitigating factors included the absence of any prior convictions, a record of public service, including the Vera Churwa Human Rights Award in 2019. How is that for some irony? Character references from judicial bodies and fellow judges, the impact of imprisonment under 3 children, ages 8 to 17. I don't care. We don't care. Put that woman in prison. I'm sorry for your children, but you shouldn't have kept a woman as a slave. And I guess she has diagnosed mental health conditions. I mean, who wouldn't when they're facing years in prison, including major depressive disorder and anxiety disorder? It's wonderful how you can just hand wave everything away. Well, I was pretty depressed. Sorry I raped and killed that woman. Sorry I kept a girl as a human slave chained up in my basement, but, I just haven't been feeling like myself recently. Now, the judge acknowledged the adverse effects of prolonged separation on the children, but found the mitigating factors did not justify reducing the sentence below what he considered the minimum commensurate with the offenses. I'm going to suggest maybe 18 months. The total sentence was 6 years and 4 months. 5 years and 6 months on the lead trafficking count with concurrent terms of 18 months and 3 years on the immigration and forced labor counts, respectively, and then a consecutive 10 months for the witness intimidation conspiracy. Mugambe will serve up to 1/2 of the sentence in custody with the remainder on license. I think that means basically house arrest. She was ordered to pay the victim $15,300. That's not much for 18 months worth of free work in compensation, and made subject to a restraining order prohibiting any contact with the victim until further order of the court. Now, the victim's personal statement described living in fear and isolation in the UK, unable to return to Uganda to see her family, unable to disclose the address of the safe house where she's staying, which has made it pretty difficult for her to obtain employment. Now, the case attracted public comment in Uganda, some of it critical of the victim, which has been a source of distress. The victim was subsequently granted asylum in the UK. Well, she got something out of it. Now, the IRMCT waived Mugambe's judicial immunity in July of 2024 after becoming aware of the investigation and discontinued her participation in tribunal business. That's a good thing. Her profile was removed from the IRMCT website following the conviction, and Mugambe has since resigned from the UN position. Why is it that the people who are always supposed to be just like the people who are supposed to be addressing problems are the ones who are always creating them? It's absolutely insane. Well, I do have some really good news. I knew you guys would find this to be extremely exciting. But for anybody out there who has said that President Trump isn't doing enough or the DOJ isn't doing enough with regard to the Epstein files, how many people have I brought you news of that have lost their position or are now being investigated, having criminal charges filed against them? I've lost count. However, this was one of those things that I did not anticipate. French authorities have just raided the Swiss bank of Edmond de Rothschild. That's right. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein worked for the Rothschild family. He brokered a deal with the U.S. government for taxes that they owed, and he worked directly with one of the Rothschild family members. That woman was in the emails all over the place. So now French authorities have actually raided the Rothschild bank. French financial prosecutors said earlier today that searches were carried out at not one, not two, several locations, including the Paris arm of Swiss private bank Edmond de Rothschild, as part of an investigation tied to revelations from the files of one Jeffrey Epstein. France's National Financial Prosecutor's Office said the searches were carried out last Friday as part of a preliminary investigation opened up last month. Investigators are examining suspicions of bribery involving a foreign public official and complicity with concerns of former French diplomat Fabrice Aydin. Now, the investigation was opened after a referral from France's foreign ministry, and it follows revelations published in the DOJ's release of the Epstein files and the subsequent reporting that took place in France as a result. The case is being handled by France's Central Office for Combating Corruption and Tax and Financial Offenses. Aydin emerged as a focus of the French fallout from the release of those millions of files from the Justice Department. French investigative outlet Mediapart reported that the file suggested Aydin provide confidential UN material to Epstein. Aydin has denied any wrongdoing. We'll find out what happens with that. Aydin's name reportedly appeared in over 200 documents, including emails sent to Epstein from 2010 to 2016 from both personal and UN accounts, creating a series of suspicions that he was sharing diplomatic documents with Epstein. Seems like a lot of people was doing that. If they had a position in government or in some position of authority, for some reason, they just kept wanting to give Jeffrey Epstein all of that info. So anyways, Aydin's lawyer has denied any wrongdoing and called for respect for the presumption of innocence. Epstein, of course, a disgraced child trafficker and sex offender, allegedly died by suicide. I don't believe that happened, but who knows if we'll ever find anything else about that. The former culture minister of France, that would be Jack Lang, he resigned in February as the head of the Arab World Institute because prosecutors opened a preliminary tax fraud investigation following the release of these Epstein files as well. I hadn't even heard about that one. I would imagine there's probably a whole bunch of people who have been hit in the fallout of this, and we just haven't gotten the information yet. Now, I know people are probably going to say, okay, bribery and tax evasion, who cares? Because the thing that we want to see prosecutions for is child sex trafficking. I'm not going to argue with you there. However, following the money, I think in often many of these cases, that's how we're going to get there. Because if you have these large sums of money that are being transferred, either for the sale or purchase of information or for the trafficking of children, they're going to see those financial transactions, and then those financial transactions lead to needing an investigation. If you'll remember, Al Capone, he was like the biggest gangster of the early 20th century, and the federal government could not bring a case against him for the gangland activities that he was engaging in. They went after him for tax evasion, and he died a broken man, I believe from syphilis in prison. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and continue to follow everything related to the Epstein investigation. Let's pray that more people are brought to justice. Okay, now, this is a very strange story, and I'm not even exactly sure what it means, but a quadruple amputee, a 27-year-old, not only is he a quadruple amputee, this guy is a cornhole champion. He has no arms, he has no legs, and yet he is a champion cornhole player, and he also somehow shot someone and killed them. Dayton James Weber. He was arrested after he shot and killed his friend during an argument in Charles County, Maryland over the weekend. Anybody from Maryland in the chat? Weber was in the driver. This is the other thing. He was driving a car with no arms and no legs. He was in the driver's seat of his vehicle when he fatally shot his friend who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Weber reportedly drove off with the body of the deceased victim. That was 27-year-old Bradrick Michael Wells. So many questions. I have so many questions on how this worked. And I didn't even know you could be a professional cornhole player. Did you guys know that? Did you know that there was any money in cornhole? Yeah, he's a cornhole champ. I thought maybe Stubby. There's so many names you could have here. So I guess, I don't know, he's well known for being an athlete without any arms and legs. I mean, good for him, except for the fact that he just shot and killed this dude. Anyways, let's take a look at the local reporting.
I'm Dayton Weber, and I'm a professional cornhole player. I had gotten a bacterial infection when I was just 10 months old. The infection that got into my arms and legs was called Streptococcus pneumoniae. They had actually given me a 3% chance of living, and the only way that they were able to save me was by getting the...
That boy loved corn. It was only natural. He grew up to play cornhole.
infections out of my system. They had to amputate my arms and legs to keep me alive. I'm thankful for the Lord and giving those surgeons the power that he did that day to be able to make such a miracle happen.
Come on, son, you can do it.
Inspiration to me is a daily driver. I believe that God put me on this planet for one reason. Everybody's got their reasons for being here, but my reason I feel like is to inspire.
Eamon, you aren't... You're not the only one, but obviously in this instance, it doesn't. I don't know, maybe they called it cornhole. Maybe it has something to do with the double entendre, the obvious association. I mean, it's a rather small hole on a larger palette, so to speak. But my goodness, I just don't know how did... Here's the thing. Even if you shot and killed your best friend, you got the perfect alibi. You just... How am I going to shoot him, guys? It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Other people just by me doing my daily task. I want them to have the sense of I can go out there and do anything I put my mind to. If they say, I want to go out and become a pro cornhole player now, I want them to look at me and be like, I can do it. I know I can. Anybody can play, anybody can win.
What wasted potential? I mean, I guess you could do anything you wanted, up to and including shooting your best friend. Like, I don't know, man. I just like, just something crazy like that. He used to... Oh, God. I guess they say, although Weber doesn't have any fingers, just to point out the obvious, he can still load and fire a handgun. How? Did he, like, hold it in his pit? He's like... I just don't know how he could do it. Oh, here he is, guys. Here's the evidence. Oh, he cooked himself. He cooked himself, chat. Can you just imagine being the dude in the passenger seat? Like, first of all, this guy's driving a car. He's driving a car, and then he, like, fishes around with his stumps on the ground, and he pulls a Beretta up, and you just start laughing because you're like, what the hell are you going to do with that? And then the next thing you know, boom. Bro, I mean, like, the amount of time it would have taken that guy to pull his Beretta out and load it up, you think that the guy in the passenger seat would have just been like, this isn't real. Like, you're not gonna shoot me, dude. Come on. Oh my God. Yeah, and that is impressive. That I am definitely impressed. Unfortunately, I feel bad for his friend. God. I saw this headline and I was like, no way. No way. How is that even possible? Patty Ninefingers says, for 417 Patriot, Mike Moon is a good guy. He only votes on things that are constitutional. He won the Locke and Smith Award several times for constitutional stance. Yeah, no ear, bro. I guess I would, if I was him, I would be concerned about the ear protection because you've already lost half of your dexterity and your ability to walk. But, oh, God, I don't know. I feel bad laughing about it, but he killed somebody, so I kind of don't. All right, so next story that we have, Alina Habba has once again been replaced. We're gonna start a countdown on how long before the DOJ fires the new U.S. attorney, because it was like, I want to say 20 minutes or something like that on the last one. As soon as we get done reading this, we're gonna go and check out Todd Blanche's timeline. So again, another Circuit County judge has appointed a prosecutor to be the U.S. attorney in New Jersey. Alina Habba was forced to step down because senators stonewalled her appointment. Those guys are on my shit list. Chief District Judge in New Jersey, Renee Bum. You're a bum, Renee. Appointed Robert Frazier. He's a longtime prosecutor. Now, Haba, who is now serving as an advisor to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, congratulated her colleague. Oh, I guess maybe this guy's cool. Congratulations to my colleague Rob Frazier at the Department of Justice in New Jersey, who has just become the next United States attorney. New Jersey deserves a great chief federal law enforcement official who is in line with President Trump's agenda of making this country safe and New Jersey great. I know Rob well, and he will be a great champion of the state and a mission of the DOJ. One thing should be clear. When judges work with Bondi and Todd Blanche under President Trump to collaborate on serving what an overwhelming majority of Americans asked for at the ballots and not attack mindlessly for political gain, things get done. So here's my question. If Alina Habba's appointment wasn't proper because the Senate never bothered to confirm her, and then Pam Bondi, who runs the Department of Justice, chooses Alina Habba to be a temporary U.S. attorney as they are waiting for her appointment, and then a judge determines that she's improper and she can't serve. Why does the judge who doesn't work at the Department of Justice have more of a say on who works at the Department of Justice than Pam Bondi? Now, is Frazier going to be the U.S. attorney for the remainder of Donald Trump's term? Is he another temporary appointment? Does this judge get to decide who gets to be the U.S. attorney in perpetuity? I mean, the whole system is it's rotten from stem to stern as far as I'm concerned. But the appointment of Frazier comes as drama exploded in the U.S. Attorney's office. Earlier this month, the federal judge fired 3 new leaders in the U.S. Attorney's office. U.S. District Judge Matthew Brann, an Obama appointee, said the current leadership in New Jersey's U.S. Attorney's Office exceeds the Attorney General's authority. 1 year into this administration, it is plain that President Trump and his top aides have chafed at the limits of their power set forth by law in the Constitution. To avoid these roadblocks, this administration frequently purports to have discovered enormous grants of executive power hidden in the vagaries and silences of the code, Brann wrote. I conclude, because I know better than anybody else, that the current leadership structure for the office of the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey exceeds the Attorney General's statutory authority to appoint inferior officers and delegate them powers, and therefore constitutes a unilateral appointment in violation of the Appointments Clause. In a wild hearing last Monday, Judge Karashi blasted U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosenbaum and grilled him about Alina Habba. You have lost confidence and the trust in this court, Karashi said, according to the transcript. You have lost the confidence and the trust of the New Jersey legal community, and you are losing the trust and confidence of the public. The judge blasted Coyne, accusing him of blindsiding the court, and then ejected him from the courtroom. The whole thing stinks from start to finish. Northern Pike, cornhole athlete is now athlete. That poor guy, when he goes to prison, it's going to be bad for him. Will to push forward says, Zach, I know I said this on here before, but it keeps making me wonder. Even after watching it, it seems like a starfish trying to shoot a gun. It's funny, yet not funny at all, and I can't get it out of my head. It's like Patrick from SpongeBob. Oh my God, that's too funny. Lizzie B, thank you for the cookie, and thank you again for the support. Will, you're killing me. Oh my God. Yeah, he can't shoot anything more powerful than maybe a 38 or a 9. Because it would just bounce back into his face. Can you imagine if he tried shooting a Desert Eagle, like how quickly that would give him face rash? Okay. All right. This is just a quick one, but guys, I just thought that looked so cool. So residents in Washington, well, I mean, across the whole western seaboard, Washington to California, they reported seeing this giant green fireball zoom through the skies early Monday morning. I wanted to ask if there was anybody here in the chat. 80% off that, Hitman. I'm going to give you a volume discount. Oh, my God. All right, so the American Meteor Society reported it received over 200 reports of this green fireball from Seattle to San Francisco. Now, let's see. Let's take a look. Well, we're going to go ahead and watch a couple of videos of it. I mean, it's a rock in the sky, but pretty neat looking.
Did you see the meteor this morning? Several people report seeing a bright green fireball around 6:06, according to Jim Todd at OMSI. A fireball is a particularly bright meteor that can be seen from a distance of about 60 to 80 miles above. According to the American Meteor Society, people from Portland to Snohomish, Washington reported the sighting. K2 viewer Jason Jenkins captured the fireball on his dash cam.
Oh, you guys, I said the Spaces was tonight, and it's actually Thursday for Unite for Freedom. I will tell the audience. Okay. All right. So, yes, it's Thursday, but you'll know that if you actually go and watch. Let's see. Joe Joe Cunt can't understand normal thinking. Thank you for your service, Joe Cunt. We are going to talk about Joe Kent in just a moment because he did that interview with Mark Levin. But before we do that, President Trump has just made a fantastic announcement. It appears that all of that diplomacy over the weekend did pan out because President Trump says that Iran has agreed for the first time that they will never have a nuclear weapon. They have officially agreed to it, and there's more. Take a listen.
And remember, it all starts with they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Just, I said yesterday, they said, what are the top 10? I said, well, number 1, 2, and 3 is they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
You're good. Just joking.
I don't want to say in advance, but they've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that.
How do you ensure they won't?
All right. Fairly definitive.
Remember, it all starts with they cannot.
Fairly definitive statement from the president there. He also mentioned that Iran has given him a mysterious present given yesterday by the nation. Now, of course, who is actually running the Iranian government? We still don't know. It's a bit of a it's a bit of a shit show over there. But take a listen to President Trump. Oh, B1876. There was a video of that dude shooting out there. We actually played the video of it. You might have shown that, and I'm late. Yes, you are, but it's okay. Thank you for the support. B1876. Yeah, we did show the video of him shooting. I'm glad that I didn't know that he could. I mean, I knew he could shoot again. They're claiming that he did, but if I was him, I would have been like, "Hey, it wasn't me, guys. What's going on? I wasn't even driving."
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people. No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, you don't know, because the leadership was killed, all gone. Khomeini, all gone, as the expression goes, the past supreme leader. And then the new supreme leader was racked up, at a minimum racked up pretty good, and everyone else was gone. And then many of the people in the third tier, because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal.
Cheryl, we'll see ya. Take it easy. So what could this present be? He says it's oil and gas. I thought maybe at first, maybe Iran gave the United States all of their enriched uranium. That would certainly alleviate any fears that, the greater world at large would have that Iran was going to develop nuclear weapons at some point in the future. But with it being oil and gas related, and he says that they sent it, so that means I thought maybe Karg Island. Well, you're not going to be able to send the island, but maybe it's some type of ownership stake in Iranian gas and oil production and sale. That could be it. Maybe allowing American companies to come in and actually run the Iranian oil sector to a degree. Maybe it's some type of shared responsibility for the Straits of Hormuz. Who knows? But President Trump makes it sound like it's something concrete. It's like a physical thing that actually arrived in Washington, D.C. So not something abstract, but who knows? But I mean, I feel like this is great news. And what did I just say? Like 2 days ago or yesterday, we're on the cusp of this whole thing being over. I really do believe that. So once again, the panicans are all going to continue crowing at the moon, but this is it. President Trump bringing peace to the entire world. It's really unfortunate sometimes. Like, there's a story. What's that movie about? Maybe gave us our money back. Maybe gave us those billions of dollars that Obama gave to Iran all that time ago. But that's not specifically oil and gas related. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. But I think that's good news. All right. Now, let's go ahead and hear Joe Kent and Mark Levin having this conversation. It sounds like this was on Mark Levin's radio program. What I can tell you is that let me say this. Let me say this before I play this for you. I think it's entirely possible for two people to say seemingly opposing things, but based upon their own perception of the situation, they can both be correct. All right. Now, President Trump has gone on record and said that, Israel did not pressure the United States to get involved in the Iranian conflict. However, I think it's likely that the presence of Iranian and Israeli aggression leading to the fight, of course, we had the 12-day war previously. The United States took out their nuclear facilities. President Trump had said previously that we did that because, basically we wanted to remove any reason that Iran and Israel had to fight with each other. Israel wanted to make sure that they didn't have nuclear weapons. Okay, they want to be the sole nuclear power in the Middle East. They've already got the nukes. We don't need anybody else having nukes. Joe Kent has said on a number of occasions that he believes that Israel pressured the United States to get involved in this fight. President Trump has essentially said that we got involved because we wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be more death. There is a responsibility that the United States has to ensure that World War III doesn't start. And I know that some people don't like that. Hey, just live and let live. You let other people take on their own battles. And if that means that a horrible thermonuclear war happens, then that's fine as long as the United States doesn't get involved. I personally not of that opinion. So I don't think that it's like Netanyahu got on the phone and said, Donald, you need to go bomb the shit out of Iran because that's what we want you to do. But I do think that it's possible that Netanyahu said, hey, guess what? We're just going to blow the shit out of Iran. We're going to destroy everything. And that's because we feel that they are going to destroy us. And Trump's like, hey, you know what? Let me just get involved here and let's see if we can't make everybody calm down. Let's bring everybody to the table. We'll bring the golden age to the Middle East, and then nobody has to worry about anything. That's really what I think happened. But here in this conversation with Joe Kent and Mark Levin, essentially, Joe Kent is echoing the same refrain that he has said in other interviews. And Mark Levin, he seems like he gets pretty uncomfortable during this conversation. So I thought it was interesting. I also went and tried to listen to the Dan Bongino episode where he was kind of like trying to, I guess, throw water on what Joe Kent was saying. And I didn't see like any specific evidence that Dan Bongino posted to show that Joe Kent was lying about anything. It seemed like it was more a difference of opinion. And Dan was obviously very upset, took great offense at what Joe Kent was saying. And so, yeah, so that's why I haven't shown any clips of it. It just kind of seemed like Dan was angry at Joe, the fact that anybody would question anything that he was saying or what the FBI did. And it didn't seem like there was anything to present other than a difference of opinion. So let's go ahead and hear this.
Why do you think the president said he never really remembers you that well? He never really met with you that often. Is that correct?
Well, the president meets with so many different people. I mean, he knew who I was, but by no means was I a primary advisor to him on a daily basis. However, in terms of...
Yes, New Case, thank you for saying that. It's okay to not choose sides between Mark Levin or Joe Kent. It's okay to not choose sides between Dan Bongino or Joe Kent. It's okay to not choose sides on everybody. I think that a lot of these people are talking from their own perspective, and based on their perspective in their minds, they're correct. Nobody has all of the information. Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows what's in other people's hearts. And when egos get involved, when people feel slighted, or when people think that they're not being taken seriously enough because they're a very serious person, people get offended and they do stupid shit. You don't have to take anybody's side. This is an intellectual exercise. I am merely examining statements made by two people, and I'm not taking either side.
Of determining the threat level that Iran posed to our country, I was a key part of that process. So that was very much in my purview.
Yes, and to, where is it? Where'd it go? Raider or Sue, you guys choose Dan. That's totally fine. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. I would never do that.
And he rejected your view?
I don't think he rejected the view. I think he may have chosen to go a different direction, and I think the vast majority of intelligence and information that he received was given to him to paint a picture that Iran was on the cusp of developing a nuclear weapon, which just simply was not the truth. And also, as Secretary...
Now, my problem with this is that, again, Joe Kent is speaking from the position of what he knew. Did he know everything? I mean, it doesn't sound like it necessarily. And it also seems like other people apparently know something that he doesn't. So I'm just stating this because it's not like I think he's lying. I think that he may be, again, I mean, this is what he thinks he knows, and from his perspective, he has the information. But does he have everything? I don't know.
Rubio said there was no imminent threat coming from Iran against the Americans.
Well, you know, he corrected that.
There was an imminent threat coming from the Israelis who were going to attack. But that's actually the truth.
Okay, hold on. We're going to do it.
Now that I do believe, because there has been decades of aggression between Israel and other nations in the Middle East. So that's like not super difficult for me to believe right there.
Honestly, one point at a time.
Had observed, the Iranians had observed an escalation ladder. They hadn't attacked us under President Trump.
Can you do me a favor? And I don't mean to be rude. Can you talk a little more slowly? I'm having trouble hearing. Take your time. Go ahead.
The thing that I think is really interesting about this is that Mark Levin appears to be kind of like stepping on what he's saying, because like a lot of people, people who criticize actions of the government of Israel, people like internalize that as if that's like an attack on Jewish people or something like that. But it's not. Like, the Israeli government has got deep state rife throughout it, just like the American United States government still does, or like other governments throughout the world. Now, this part right here, I guess that he said that he would testify in the Charlie Kirk murder case, even if it helps accused Tyler Robinson. So, I mean, seemingly that he would testify on behalf of Tyler Robinson. I mean, I guess that this is all to do with the information he had about the investigation into the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and perhaps the assassination attempts on President Trump. This doesn't mean that he's going to be called as a witness, but the fact that he's publicly stating it does offer that as a possibility, because he was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Now, another aspect that I think that, some people are considering and other people are not considering is that it is entirely possible that Joe Kent may have been sent out into the world, out of the administration, to perhaps drop pieces of information. And some people will bristle at that as a possibility, simply based upon the seeming friction that exists between him and Dan Bongino now, based on what he's saying, or the fact that he is drawing any attention to the Israeli mission in the Middle East. But the reason that I consider that to be a possibility is because what he's saying echoes other things that I've heard from people in the administration say, which is essentially that the goals of Israel in Iran are not the same as the goals as the United States in Iran. I believe that President Trump has the upper hand at the end of the day. And I trust in the the judgment of President Trump. But this is not going to win Joe Kent any friends in the larger community to suggest that he might testify, even if it helps Tyler Robinson. You know, if Tyler Robinson didn't do it, I don't think he should go to prison. But that's why I think it's so important that there is a full and exhaustive investigation. And so based on that, I am looking forward to seeing the trial so that we get access to all of the information and the evidence that the state apparently has against him. Let's see. Northern Pike says, I believe that green thing in the sky was an intercontinental missile, glowing green dildo and balls launched at Iran. Oh, my gosh. John from Florida says, some like the cameras. He does want political office. And that's true. He definitely ran for political office prior to becoming, a member of President Trump's government. Now, I would like to get to the meat and potatoes of today's show, and that is these newly released documents that were put out by Chuck Grassley earlier today. What they show is that Jack Smith is far more responsible for illegal actions, along with the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, than had previously been revealed. Now, Chuck Grassley showed with these subpoenas that Jack Smith actually went after now current FBI Director Kash Patel's phone records. But it's not just his phone records, gang. They went after every aspect of Kash Patel's life for several years. And Christopher Wray would have had to sign off on this. Now, Jack Smith subpoenaed Verizon for roughly 2 years worth of FBI Director Kash Patel's private phone records. That includes his text and call logs, residential address, and his credit card number. The records include a wish list created by Smith's team naming 14 members of Congress to whom they wanted to seek this rolling tolling data. Some of those members of the Senate are on the very committee on which Chuck Grassley sits, so that they were right there, part of the investigation, and now they're part of the exposure of that investigation. So Mike Davis said Democrat D.C. district judges illegally worked in secret with Biden special counsel Jack Smith to bring charges. Now, we see that in the documents I'm about to show you in just a minute, but Kash Patel has fired at least 10 individuals at the FBI as part of these secret subpoenas because this was a vast, overreaching, corrupt, and illegal investigation. Let's take a look at this document right here. So Hans Mankey says that this subpoena released this morning by Chuck Grassley in connection with the fraudulent Arctic frost investigation is absolutely staggering. They didn't just ask for Kash's phone records. It asked for everything he did from 2020 to 2023. Now, just to name a few, they requested every username he has, all screen names, every address, every email, his complete billing and payment details, including his credit card and bank account numbers, every device ID, a full log of every call, text, and voicemail showing who was contacted, when, how long he was on the phone for. They also got all of his internet session data, including the exact IP addresses. So this wasn't just about who Kash called. This is basically a complete snapshot of Kash Patel's entire life. Every communication that he had, every place that he went on the internet, every message or phone call that he ever received during this 3-year period. By getting this data, you guys, this allows the FBI and the DOJ to complete a map of Kash's entire life, his daily routines, where he traveled, where he was likely to travel, what relationships he might have had, who his friends might have been, finances, if he had any bank accounts that maybe people didn't know about, or perhaps, what sources of income he was receiving, who he may have been in contact with related to President Trump and the administration, even the device IDs. That's how you know, what types of devices people are using. Every phone, every website and an internet point, you've got an IP address. Every phone, every tablet, every watch, I mean, whatever it is, it's got a device ID. And so that device ID is connected to this device. And if even if you have a different phone number on it, they can see that device ID is being used in a certain place, and they can follow that device ID using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections, and they can see where you're going. If you have your phone in your pocket, they can tell if you're a man or a woman, how old you are, just by the way that your body moves and the way that you carry your phone and the places that you go. They can create a psychological profile of you. And so they literally got everything that they could have possibly gotten on Kash. In short, a complete profile of his digital and personal life. And to come through all of this without so much as a scratch, that tells you something. That tells you that Kash Patel is quite literally clean as a whistle. The same with any of these other people that were subpoenaed for this type of information. If the DOJ, just like President Trump, if the DOJ or the FBI could have gotten a indictment or they even gotten an investigation, they would have. They would have brought this guy in. They would have charged him. And it means ultimately that Kash Patel truly, in my book, is one of the good guys. So you can see here where they ask for all accounts associated with Kash Patel and then somebody else who has yet to be identified. Provide the following records from October 1st, 2020 through February 22nd, 2023. So obviously, this is just before the 2020 election and then into early 2023. Subscriber information, the names, all of those screen names, all of his addresses, residential mailing addresses, places where he just received mail, business addresses, email addresses, all call detail records, including but not limited to records for inbound and outbound calls, text messages, direct connect, voice messages, the length of the service, start date, types of services used. So that would be like subscriptions and stuff like that. Means and source of payment for such service, credit card, banking accounts, checking accounts, billing records, telephone or instrument addresses, MAC addresses, ESNs, which is the unique identifier for your cell phone, mobile electronic identity numbers, which is another unique identifier to your cell phone. You connect that to the ESN for your SIM card. Mobile equipment identifier, again, mobile identification number, subscriber identity modules, that's the SIM. I'm sorry, okay. The SIM is what has your phone number attached to it. The MEIN and the MEID are both unique identifiers to the device. It's mobile subscriber integrated service digital network identifier number. I don't even know that one. MSISDN. International mobile subscriber identifier. So if he has a phone that he uses outside of the country, international mobile station equipment identities. Records of session times and durations and temporarily assigned network addresses. So that would be like if he was using a VPN and they want to see if he's like covering up his internet track. Other subscriber numbers or identities, including temporarily assigned network addresses and registration internet protocol addresses, including carrier grade NATing addresses or ports. Like, this is very, very detailed. Personally, I've never seen a request for information in this detailed a form. Now, this is particularly interesting. Now, initially, when the investigation threw Arctic Frost into Susie Wiles and her lawyer came out, the FBI said that they got the go-ahead from her attorney to listen in and record her conversations. Well, Susie Wiles said there's no way that happened. Her lawyer came forward and said that definitely didn't happen. I never told the FBI that they could listen into me and Susie Wiles. So what that means is that the FBI illegally wiretapped Susie Wiles in the lead up to President Trump becoming president again. Now, Rasmussen dropped something rather interesting. He says, just wait until they find out exactly who the so-called Iranian hackers were who stole Susie Wiles' communications during the 2024 campaign. Do you guys remember that? They kind of dropped that story after a very brief period of time. But allegedly, people on President Trump's campaign were hacked by Iranian hackers. What did we learn about the Iranian government? That it was rife with agents of Mossad, essentially keeping Iran as radical as possible to ensure that the rationale for a war between the two countries would continue. And then, of course, the Mossad agents inside the Iranian government would then give over certain people to Israel for assassination or for tracking and targeting purposes. These quote-unquote Iranian hackers were seemingly not really Iranian hackers. Maybe they were Iranian by birth, but apparently they were working for somebody else. Now, were they working for Israel? Were they working for the corrupt deep state in the United States intelligence community? I think it certainly sounds as if it's a lot more, if it's a lot deeper than simply calling them out as Iranians. Let's take a listen to Based Mike Lee. I'm going to have to refresh.
Should the president be able to direct the FBI to spy on the campaign of his political opponent? Your testimony focuses, among other things, on an FBI recording of a 2023 phone call between Susie Wiles, who was at the time managing President Trump's presidential campaign, and her lawyer. Now, according to the FBI, the lawyer was aware of the recording, but isn't it true that the lawyer denied that he had ever consented to that arrangement?
That's true.
And if, in fact, the lawyer did not consent, your testimony today is that this would have been and was an illegal wiretap by the FBI in the absence of her lawyer's consent with the FBI.
That's correct.
And the FBI designated this as a prohibited file to prevent anyone from finding out about it.
That seems to be correct, yes.
Okay, so they did something they weren't supposed to do, then they designated it as a prohibited file to cover it up. Now, in general, should the president be able to direct the FBI to spy on the campaign of his political opponent?
Absolutely not.
All right. Now, somebody in the chat, Proud Navy Patriot, says the UK. Well, the reason that I suggest the U.S. intelligence community, CIA and Mossad, Israel, is because we have knowledge that both the CIA and Israel were using Iran as sort of a inflection and proxy point, in my opinion, ultimately to create a continued destabilization in the Middle East. As long as you've got a boogeyman, you've always got a reason for appropriations, operations, and, of course, continued spying activities. But we don't have any evidence that the UK MI6 was doing the same thing. Not ruling it out, but certainly I just think that it's not as likely as as Mossad or CIA. Hopefully we find out. I mean, I don't care what country it is, but it sounds, based upon what Rasmussen is saying, that it's not as simple as just Iranian hackers. Iranian hackers, it's like Russian hackers, right? I mean, Russian hackers hacked John Podesta's email. Ha, 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 ha. Everybody knows that didn't happen. That was really Hillary Clinton's people covering up for what was most likely a leak coming from inside the DNC. That's why, in my opinion, Seth Rich is no longer alive. All right, now continue. Yes, the deep state wants world war. That is correct. This is the, we think about things in terms of like nationalities and people. And, we say those things because then it ascribes like an easily identifiable marker. But the deep state does not care about nation states. They don't care about people. They care about power, and they care about using us against each other. This is not about like in most of these instances, it's not about like one nation becoming, more powerful overall, because you got these people working in different governments all around the world. They're loyal to each other. They're loyal to the New World Order at the end of the day, not to these various governments under which they are technically employed. All right. Now, okay. So actually this is a longer version of that Mike Lee video.
Of public outrage that stemmed. Thank you very much, Senator Cruz, for convening this hearing. It's an important topic. About a half century ago, President Nixon resigned. He did so under pressure on the basis of public outrage that stemmed from a break-in at DNC headquarters. It was an act of
also a CIA operation. Nixon was essentially tricked into sanctioning this CIA operation that was designed exclusively to discredit him and then get him out of office.
Lawfare, you might say, or maybe better said, political espionage. Today, the media and my Democrat colleagues have fallen conspicuously silent when confronted with a scandal that in some ways is of much larger proportions because it involves the official law enforcement apparatus.
G. Fontes says, I seen her just the other day jocking... I seen it just the other day, jocking Mike Lee to my dismay. Girls, to clean the dishes. Girls, to clean up my room. From Beastie Boys' song Girls on their debut album, Licensed to Ill. It took me a minute to get that.
The U.S. government in a much more direct way than that one did. President Biden's systematic weaponization of the Department of Justice and federal law enforcement against his political opponents is a development of staggering proportions. And by development, I mean scandal. Just like the Watergate break-in, Arctic frost was ultimately an attempt to sway the results of a presidential election. But this comparison may even be unfair to President Nixon, who never attempted to quash dissent by putting the opposition candidate in prison for trumped-up charges. Now, thankfully, the Biden administration failed in that misguided effort. President Trump was elected by the people to become the 47th president of the United States. But we have to ensure that this kind of lawfare can't occur again. Mr. Chamberlain, I'd like to start with you. Your testimony focuses, among other things, on an FBI recording.
All right. And really, I should have reversed these clips so that we could hear them. I've just gotten rid of the shorter one. But I love Mike Lee. Mike Lee is great. You know, people may have criticisms for him, but nobody's perfect. Out of all of the stiffs that are in the Senate, he's one of the ones that I like. All right. Now, during Ted Cruz's questioning of Will Chamberlain, they got in just a little bit deeper. What is really staggering here is the way that this investigation into the people surrounding President Trump was covered up. That right there is the scandal to end all scandals. Of course, the way that they went about getting the subpoenas, that's a scandal in and of itself. But it proves ultimately at the end of the day that the people who were working with the DOJ and Jack Smith, they did so with the knowledge that they were likely breaking the law so that they could stop President Trump from returning. Now, of course, breaking the law to stop a candidate from being reelected means absolutely nothing to them, because if they were successful, nobody would find out. And they also knew that based upon the way they categorized this investigation, hiding it under layers of bureaucracy, improperly filing it so that when people go to look for something that should be somewhere, they're not going to be able to find it easily, it was even less likely that it would be found if they were unsuccessful. The wiretapping of President Trump's highest advisor's attorney is so disgusting and so illegal. And the fact that they tried to bury it deserves a wholesale clean out of the FBI and the Department of Justice. I don't know that they fired everybody that was involved in this, but they need to. Because if they don't, then I am firmly in the belief that these people are simply going to bide their time. You know, another thing that I've said on many occasions is that, unfortunately, what people on the right tend to get caught up in is the election cycle. They think about 2 and 4 year cycles. Oh, it's the general election. Now it's the midterms. Now it's the general election. Now it's the midterms. And people are just spinning their wheels the entire time, not really accomplishing anything because they're focused on the elections. And that is simply not the way that we fix these things. It is unfortunate that we live and exist in a system that to a great degree is so utterly corrupted, it makes it nigh on impossible for the average American to do much of anything at all other than get caught up in the television drama of everything. But it's really all we can do is demand accountability from these people. So There were nearly 200 subpoenas that were issued during Arctic frost. Over 400 Republicans and individuals in government, outside of government, were targeted. Many of these people did have some sort of connection to January 6th. Plenty of them didn't. Some of the organizations that were subpoenaed after the fact were not even around on January 6th. So the rationale that Jack Smith was using, that somehow it was tied to January 6th, that obviously doesn't hold much water. But the fact that they subpoena the records of senators, this is, my friends, probably the best thing that could have happened, because unfortunately for the American people, all too often, one of the reasons we don't see any progress, one of the reasons we don't see any sort of accountability is because the people who have the power to bring accountability to the American people are blissfully untouched by the machinations of the deep state apparatus. And the fact that Jack Smith went after people sitting in Congress, well, I think that he signed his own death warrant. Now, they need to bring this guy up on criminal charges. They need to bring Boasberg up on criminal charges. They need to bring Judge Beryl Howell up on criminal charges. Just because they're judges, it does not make them immune from ignoring the law. Take a listen to Senator Cruz. He's actually questioning, I believe this is somebody who is in the FBI, Christopher O'Leary. He's a former FBI agent. And although, you know, Ted Cruz is not perfect either, he is good at asking questions in Senate hearings.
Cleveland, Jack Smith issued nearly 200 subpoenas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Those subpoenas targeted over 400 Republican individuals and organizations, correct?
Correct.
Many of whom had no connection to those who entered the Capitol on January 6th, correct?
Absolutely.
And in fact, some of those organizations didn't even exist on January 6th. Is that correct?
It is.
So we're not talking about a narrow investigation. We're talking about a sweeping operation targeting virtually the entirety of the other side politically.
It was a fishing expedition.
So let's turn to the Constitution. Subpoenaing the toll records of members of Congress, does that raise serious constitutional concerns?
Absolutely. And in fact, we have the PIN who notified the special counsel's office of those concerns. And Jack Smith had apparently said that he was going to consult with the Solicitor General, according to the release of the information from Senator Grassley this morning. Yet when he was deposed by the House and was specifically asked if he spoke with the Solicitor General, he said, on this discrete issue, no.
Discreet only because they knew if they told people what they were doing, they would get shut down, or there would be a significant amount of noise that would be raised as a result. I mean, to subpoena the phone records of members of Senate and then not tell them about it. I mean, like, they have different rules that they're governed by, which is, you know, not right, but it's the way that it is. If their information gets subpoenaed, they have to be told about it, okay? Because that's what they've put for themselves on the books. If we get subpoenaed, they don't have to tell us anything. They can keep it a secret. And they kept it a secret from these members of the Senate so that they would just continue about their daily business. They wanted to try to catch them in some form of criminal activity or something that they could trap them into. Now, in this clip right here, oh no, I guess that's it for the Arctic frost investigation. Let's move on to the airports. So before we do, I have a brief message from our friends over at Rumble Premium. Let me pull this up. You guys, you've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast. It's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. They're really working to build an alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually promotes free speech and protects it. Now we've got Rumble Premium. It's an easy way to upgrade your experience because with Premium, you get ad-free viewing across your entire platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and even more from your favorite content creators. And right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. To pick it up, you got to go to rumble.com/premium and use that promo code STUDIO at checkout. Once again, that's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That is the deal. All right. Now, it is with great pleasure that I inform everyone watching that the good men and women of ICE have completely solved the problem of long lines at the airport. But before I tell you about that, the CEO of Delta Airlines, Ed Bastian, is now picking up the accolades of Americans across the entire country. Much like Congress has different rules when it comes to law enforcement investigations, apparently Congress also has different rules when flying on airplanes. If they take an airplane going someplace across the United States, they apparently receive special priority privileges. Well, Ed Bastian has announced that Delta Airlines is suspending their standalone service for members of Congress as a result of their failure to fund TSA. He said, due to the impact on resources from the long-standing government shutdown, Delta will temporarily suspend specialty services for members of Congress flying Delta. Next to safety, Delta's number one priority is taking care of our people and customers, which has become increasingly difficult in the current environment. And a spokesperson for Delta said that the House and Senate members who are flying on Delta will now be treated just like all flying passengers, according to their SkyMiles status. So in other words, they are going to have to wait in lines just like everybody else. Now, that is based AF. And if only he would have announced that a couple of weeks ago, because ICE shows up and guess what, guys? All of the lines are gone. This tells me one of two things. Either the people they're hiring at TSA are so blatantly, completely incompetent, or there's a lot more illegal aliens in the United States than anybody knows, and a lot of them are flying all the freaking time. So ICE showed up and went to airports all around the country. We went over a number of them yesterday, and wouldn't you know it, it didn't take long for ICE to turn a 3-hour line into a 3-minute line. Take a look at this. In addition to that, now that ICE is in airports, they are going to stick around. The Democrats have got to be freaking out about this if they know how many illegal aliens are using the air system in the United States, either flying in or out of the country or just flying around the country as they are illegal in status. ICE is now going to be at airports specifically looking for criminals that are going to be using airlines, and they are going to continue assisting TSA. So take a listen to Tom Homan.
Trump made a brilliant move this week, and he called me and says, let's send ICE to the airport. I thought it was a smart move. And we're filling the holes. The wait lines already dropped. Plus, we're doing a security function at the airports. We're going to arrest criminals going through this airport. We're going to look for human trafficking, sex trafficking, money smuggling. We're going to be at the airports working with our brothers and sisters of TSA. They're our brothers and sisters within DHS. President Trump made a smart move. We're going to keep the airplanes flying. We're going to get the American people to those lines quicker, and we're not going to give up President Trump's promise to American people to make this country safer every day, and that's what we're going to keep doing. Trump made it.
I love it. I love it. Now, President Trump had the brilliant idea. Just how brilliant? Well, take a listen to this. President Trump wants everybody to know that the idea of putting putting ICE in airports is his idea, and he tells a story to show you just how brilliant it was.
Whose idea was that, to put ICE in the airport?
We're dealing really...
Whose idea was it?
Mine. That was mine.
Can I ask you,
That was like the paperclip. You know the story of the paperclip? 182 years ago, a man discovered the paperclip. It was so simple. And everybody that looked at it say, why didn't I think of that? ICE was my idea. First person I called was Tom Homan. I said, what do you think? He said, I think it's great. Then I saw today there was some masks on. I didn't think the masks were appropriate. I put out a statement and I asked them, would it be possible to take off the mask? Because they should wear a mask when they're dealing with the murderers and the thugs let into our country.
It's a brilliant idea. It's a simple idea. And it's just like the invention of the paperclip. Everybody is saying, why in the hell didn't I think of that? President Trump, in his brilliant simplicity, did exactly what we needed to have done. And as a result of that, my friends, I am happy to report to you that I don't think there is a single line at any airport across the United States right now. Take a look at this. This is in Houston. All right. The last time I showed you the airport in Houston, this line was going out the door. It was into the parking ramp. Right now, there's no wait. There's no wait. And it's not like fewer people are flying. Americans are even probably going to be flying even more. Take a look at this. This is Philadelphia. I bet you there's a lot of illegals flying out of Philadelphia.
But I do want to point out, this is an empty line right now. We are standing in the middle where travelers come to check in for TSA. Yesterday, this was all the way back to the garage. So good news today, lines aren't too bad. We're live from PHL. Brianna Gallagher, Channel 6 Action News. Hey, good morning, Matt. Good news if you are traveling here this morning. Right now in Terminal A East, lines aren't that bad, but as you mentioned, ICE agents, they have arrived here at PHL. For the most part, we've been seeing them hanging back. However,
here's the other thing. ICE is there at the airport. They're not just arresting criminals. They're not just helping to make sure that people are making their way through the line and they're not being dicks about it. They're also passing out water. They're arresting criminals. People have said that they're very happy about it. There have even been Democrats, people who had this preconceived notion about who ICE was and that they were there to murder people because that's what the Democrat politicians told them. And ICE has changed their mind. President Trump, in one fell swoop, has fixed the long lines at airports. He has stopped illegal aliens from flying on these airplanes, and he has also changed the narrative in the minds of TDS suffering people across the nation by placing TSA agents next to ICE agents. And it's unfortunate that, at TSA, they worked there. They're not getting paychecks. That's unfortunate. There are some good people, of course, that work at TSA. Of course, there is also a lot of people who I don't think should be working at TSA. And hopefully those people don't end up coming back.
they have been also assisting travelers as need be. I do want to point out that the agents aren't wearing masks. President Trump says while he is okay with ICE agents wearing masks during immigration enforcement raids, he does not want them doing so at the airports. Now, as long lines and delays continue due to the partial government shutdown, union reps with TSA says each day is getting worse.
We got Homeland Security investigations in there as well. Take a look. Here we are at an airport in Florida. Yet again, there's no lines.
And the wait line looks like this. In the couple of hours that I've been here, I've seen ICE officers patrolling, and the line has looked the same since I got here. Completely empty. So if you see wait times go down while you're traveling, you may just want to thank an ICE officer. Earlier this morning, travelers may have experienced a little bit of a wait time, but since I've been here, the lines seem to be moving fairly smooth.
Illegals are not afraid of TSA. TSA is not there to perform any law enforcement obligations. They're merely there to, unfortunately, make people's lives difficult as they're going through the airports. The problem that I have with TSA is that a lot of them seem to have some type of superiority complex. I've met plenty of nice TSA agents, people who are totally cool. Here in Atlanta, which was one of the worst airports across the country, no lines. Everybody's cool.
It is exponentially different here today than it was this time yesterday over the weekend. As you can see, there is a very short line right now, and it's unclear if that's because ICE is now assisting TSA or if it's just a slower travel day. But
no, it's definitely because ICE is assisting TSA. She doesn't have to be dishonest about this. It's ICE assisting TSA. You've got the manpower. You've got also perhaps more authoritative people who are keeping people in check. You know what I haven't seen in the last couple of days? I haven't seen any wild Karen videos of people flipping out and demanding to be let on airplanes.
Regardless, a remarkable change from the hours-long waits we've been seeing with lines stretching all the way around baggage claim. So I want to give our viewers some perspective. Take a look at this. To the left of your screen is what the baggage claim area looks like this morning. No lines at all in that part of the airport after still a busy early hours in the morning. And to the right of your screen is baggage claim around the same time yesterday morning. It was packed.
Yeah, this is not because people just decided to suddenly not fly because ICE is going to be at the airports, unless they're illegal aliens and they don't want to get arrested. Now, President Trump was up late again, as he tends to be. At 2 a.m., he posted the following on Truth Social. Democrats are desperate to keep illegals, no matter how bad or dangerous they may be in our country. They want them to vote. That's why they are fighting so hard to neutralize ICE. We will fight them all the way and win. This is one of the reasons why I think President Trump is in no way going to accept some type of a compromise that both defunds ICE and doesn't give us the Save America Act. The compromise that the Senate is attempting to push through so that they can go back home for Easter is total bullshit. They're not going to do it. Now, with ICE assisting TSA, again, he has completely changed the narrative. The American people are seeing that, hey, as long as you're not acting a fool, as long as you're not getting up in somebody's face or like waving a gun at them or driving your car over their foot, you're probably not going to have to worry about getting shot or, being hurt in any way. Also, Secretary of Homeland Security, Markwayne Mullins, has just been sworn in earlier today. He is now the 9th Secretary of the DHS. Here he is with President Trump shortly after placing his hand on the Bible.
I think that was the most nervous I've ever been. It just seems surreal being in the Oval Office and having the President of the United States speak so highly of me and then recognize my family and know my family by name. It's humbling, and I never take it for granted, but I made this very clear that I don't care what color your state is. I don't care if you're red or you're blue. At the end of the day, my job is to be Secretary of Homeland and to protect everybody the same, and we will do that. I'll fight every single day. Today I got the privilege of meeting so many of the employees at DHS. These employees have been there for 30 days without pay. And if you need anything to know their dedication to show up and still protect the homeland that you and I enjoy and the freedoms that we're experiencing, they're working with for free because of political politics. That's all I need to know. I told him, as you're fighting 365 days, understand I'll be fighting 365 days beside you. No one's going to outwork me, and I'm not going to let any of them outwork me. The President has entrusted me with this, and failure is not an option. And so thank you so much, Mr. President, for this opportunity. I won't let you down.
Thank you very much.
You better not, Markwayne. I don't think he will. I think he's a good dude. All right. Now, we have a pretty interesting interaction right here. And apparently, non-English speaking trucker was pulled over by a trooper from my home state of Florida. And down here in Florida, we've got a pretty simple litmus test. If they don't speak English, they don't get to drive. So take a look at this. He's giving this guy a quiz, showing him road signs, and the guy can't answer. So, hey, we take him off the road right there.
Good is your English? Entiendo algo poquito. Can you speak any English? No, don't speak no English.
Okay, so didn't speak English, he said. This trucker failed the test. He was taken out of service right away. He didn't know what the road signs meant. People might think, what's the big deal? They're just behind a big rig. Why do they need to speak English? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say, number one...
Jane, you ignorant slut. All the road signs are in English. I mean, the road signs are not universal. You don't go from Mexico or Ecuador or Honduras to the United States of America and expect that the road signs are going to be the same. You might not even be driving on the same side of the road in some of those countries as we drive here in the United States of America. And the obvious answer as to why these people are such a danger to us is in the proof of the many, many multitudes of American citizens who have died at their hands. Now, I didn't even get a chance to talk about this really, but a young woman and a group of people were walking over the weekend at Loyola University in Democrat-run Chicago over the weekend. And an illegal alien from Venezuela ran up out of nowhere and just started firing a gun at them. Obviously, as an illegal alien, he didn't have any legal right to own a weapon of that nature. And this young woman, an 18-year-old student, was killed. Her name is Sheridan Gorman. And Maria Haddon, the woman you see right here, is a Democrat alderwoman. It's like a city councilwoman in Chicago. And she put out this video essentially minimizing the death of this young woman, saying that it's not the illegal alien's fault. This student was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
All the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around. So the kids were out doing normal things people do in the neighborhood. And it sounds like this might have been a wrong place, wrong time, running into a person who had a gun. They might have startled this person at the end of the pier unintentionally. But that's
bullshit,
right?
These kids had every right to walk and not bother anybody and not have to worry about some psychopath running up out of nowhere and just shooting at them. There was no warning. It was nothing like that. Totally freaking ridiculous. Now, James O'Keefe has released his latest expose from California. This is a follow-up to the mass fraudulent personal election fraud scheme designed to steal the identities of living voters and, some of them may not be living, but just registered voters, and have their signature signed on ballot petitions. So then get these ballot petitions on the ballots. And once they're on the ballots, they could steal, fraudulently get them passed by using fraudulent mail-in ballots to vote in favor of those ballot petitions. There's a whole bunch of different ways how this can go bad. But the one thing that I can tell you is that in California and in many other places, it is totally illegal to use the identity of another person. And that is exactly what they're doing. So much like that first video we saw maybe 2 weeks ago, where it appeared that they had a list of voter names and addresses, and they were paying homeless people to write the names, addresses, and signatures of people who were not present. That's exactly what they're doing in California. And James got hidden camera video from a number of undercover journalists who prove that this is happening at scale. And apparently, it's on every street corner in Los Angeles, and we're going to watch the introduction to this video. Again, it's a 20-minute expose. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. If you haven't, if you're not up to date on this as a phenomenon, it's definitely eye-opening. If you are, I still think it's eye-opening because this is great journalism.
The first name.
I'm Joseph Albright. Okay.
The first name.
Joseph Albright.
Fraudulent petitioners on Skid Row are now paying the homeless to forge names, forge addresses, and forge signatures of registered voters.
What are you using? Teresa.
No, I'm gonna give you an address to write.
Oh, okay.
Follow directions.
Okay, yeah.
Robert.
Quickly becoming a widespread scheme that can be found on almost every street corner in downtown Los Angeles.
So you're gonna go do this, they're gonna give you another $3. Then you're gonna do somebody else, they're gonna give you another $3.
So you guys are all working together.
You asking a lot of, you scaring me.
We find
that right there is proof of the knowledge of his criminal actions. What is there to be scared about? Somebody just asking questions, unless you know what you are asking these people to do is illegal. It's very, very illegal.
Thousands of names and addresses of registered voters being handed out to the homeless on scraps of paper.
Oh, cool. They pay you? How much? Oh, what name you have there? Oh, it's Vicky Walker. You're Vicky, huh?
They gave me the name.
Oh, cool.
We tracked down the disenfranchised.
So they end up taking the names of the people that had their identities used, and then they actually go to their homes and let them know that their identity is being stolen. Most of the people were like, this is so messed up. We got to do something about this. There was at least one liberal woman who got very offended, went total Karen on James O'Keefe and wanted to know why he was filming. Now, the good news about this is, besides having this exposed, because unless something is identified as a scheme, it can't be addressed, is that the White House has taken notice. Trump White House has responded directly to the video. They say President Trump has been the #1 advocate for election security in America, and he will not back down. That's why he has so passionately been advocating for the Save America Act, common sense legislation supported by the vast majority of Americans, including 90% who support voter ID. We want to ensure our elections are secure and that the only American citizens vote in American elections. The Trump administration will always take seriously any allegation that the law has been broken and is grateful to intrepid reporters working hard to bring attention to these issues. Now, this would be under the purview of U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley. Bill Asaley has had quite a few high-profile cases that he's brought against people who are engaging in fraud or illegal activities related to these sorts of things. So I don't think it's going to be much longer before we have people who actually start getting indicted for this stuff. It obviously needs to happen. But what's really unfortunate is that much of this is solely going to be under the jurisdiction of the state of California. And it is the California state government that is supporting the system that leads to what we see here. I mean, it's money coming from the state of California, going to the non-governmental organizations, being paid to the recruiters, which are then paying the homeless people to make it possible for these sorts of things to happen. So we'll just, again, have to wait, but we are quickly running out of runway here. Very, very close to the midterms. And, you know, I know what I said earlier about thinking in terms of 2 and 4 year cycles, but it's also something that you can't not pay attention to. It is real, it is happening, and we have certain things that need to be addressed very, very quickly. Now, we're going to go ahead and close out here with a couple of pieces on fraud. First of all, also in Los Angeles, we have an investigator who's identified another apparently fraudulent hospice facility, this one called Topanga Hospice Care Incorporated. The entire building is empty. I guess there's one chair, but otherwise it's abandoned. And when you call the phone number, it's just a busy tone. It doesn't actually go anywhere. They've billed Medicare $3,434,254 in the last couple of years.
What's up, you guys? We are here in Artesia at the legendary Topanga Hospice Care Incorporated. 10 a.m. on a Thursday. They're not open. We're gonna go ahead and give them a call. You know, Topanga's about an hour and a half or 2 hours away, but there's nothing weird about this name, okay? It's not like they're trying to divert attention, okay? We're just gonna call them, oh, they're busy. The user's busy. You know, they must just be doing so much business because a couple guys were working in there a couple weeks ago and there's a chair in there, okay? There's like floor and a chair. So they must be renovating. They must be doing all sorts of stuff. They've been open for about 7 years, okay? And in 2022, they billed Medicare through CMS and the Payco system $1.2 million. They billed in 2023 $1.9 million. So business is climbing. They're doing really well. They're not open now because they're super busy. They're probably on calls and stuff. But we're gonna keep looking into this, okay? Topanga with a heart and the O. Beautiful place, Sweet G. It's a lovely.
So very clearly a fraudulent business. Now, we also, and let me say thank you to IB Fish. Oh, G. Fontez said, so awesome, Zach. I think that's in relation to the Beastie Boys. IB Fish says, rumor has it Bradrick Wells played second base for his high school baseball team. Not the position, but second base. And then ZBM says, holy late balls, I'm tardy today. Sorry, we were at our homeschool meetup in town. Gonna rewatch the show later. Thank you, Zach, for the awesome show per the usual. 100% cheers, Red Pill 78 fans. Thank you, my friend, and hope you had a good time today and that your kids made a lot of friends. Okie7, thank you for the cookie. Appreciate that over on Pilled. All right, now, here is yet another scam, this time in the city of Houston. Apparently, employees of the city of Houston were using their city-issued credit cards to buy power tools, and then they were reselling them on sites like, I think, eBay.
The city of Houston issues tools and equipment to public works employees from this warehouse. But we found some employees buying the same tools and equipment with their city-issued credit cards, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth.
There was a scheme, a couple of employees that we're aware of that for a series of years were using a P card to make purchases of tools and then selling those tools on their own and pocketing the money.
I wanted to talk to you about all the tools that you purchased with your City of Houston P card. Where did all those tools go? My name is Amy Davis. I'm a reporter with Channel 2. Okay.
This post is from one of his Instagram accounts selling 3 new Milwaukee compact cordless drill sets. The post reads, original price was $700. He sold them for $450. City credit card statements show he purchased this cordless drill set 190 times.
Holy.
There is an active investigation with law enforcement right now to continue to look into not only what has taken place, but are there others involved? Where does it go from there?
Take it as far as you possibly can. Every single scammer, I don't care how small, how large, they need to go to prison. Absolutely need to go to prison. All right, you guys, I think that, oh, you know what? I wanted to end with this because this took courage, all right? So a family in Kentucky was just offered $26 million to sell part of their farm so that it could be turned into a data center. Now, just to put this into context, the amount of land that the data center was trying to purchase to convert into one of these AI data centers, they offered them about 10 times the going asking price. So that tells you everything you need to know about how valuable these data centers are to these companies once they get them built. $26 million to offer 10 times the actual value of this land. Undoubtedly, that data center was looking to make many, many, many dozens of times more in a return for the sale of that compute. So for this woman and her farm, her family farm, to turn down a $26 million offer, that takes some freaking courage. And I got so much respect for her.
If it's my way, I'll stay and hold and feed a nation. 26 million doesn't mean anything.
Some people might find it hard to understand how Delcia Bear can turn away a $26 million offer to buy some of her land until you spend a little time with her walking the dirt road she grew up on and in the house her daddy built.
My grandfather and great-grandfather and a whole bunch of family has all lived here for years, paid taxes on it, fed a nation off of it, even raised wheat through the Depression and kept the bread lines up in the United States of America when people didn't have anything else.
Delcia is one of dozens of landowners approached by an anonymous buyer, one of the major players in artificial intelligence, likely Google or Meta or Amazon, to purchase their land. The market value for land in Mason County is about $6,000 an acre. The realtor that came to her door last April offered her and her mother about 10 times that.
They call us old stupid farmers, but we're not. We know whenever our food is disappearing, our lands are disappearing, and we don't have any water and poison, we know we've had it.
Delcia's mom, Ida Huddleston, is now 82 years old. She says she does not need the money or the hassle. She was born on this land and she plans to die here, and she certainly does not trust the promises made by the AI companies or the people who want them to build here.
So what do you say to the people who are in town that say, hey, this is going to bring jobs, this is going to bring economic prosperity?
I say they're a liar and the truth ain't in them, is what I say. It's a scam.
For Delcia, scam or not, she says she's connected to her home like Scarlett O'Hara was in Gone with the Wind.
As long as she was attached to that land, her spirit never would die. And that's the exact same thing for me right here. As long as I'm on this land, as long as it's feeding me, as long as it's taking care of me, there's nothing that can destroy me if I've got this land.
Amen. Oh, man, I got so much respect for those gals. That is so cool. All right, you guys, before we go through the final thank yous, I just have one more message from our friends over here on Rumble. All right, you guys, they can freeze your accounts. Banks can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your money, and they can do it like that because banks do not protect you. They control you, and that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can even own Tether Gold. That's real gold. It's on the blockchain. And through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars. Each one is fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy it, sell it, move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That is power. And when you support content creators like myself on Rumble, you can tip them directly using the Rumble wallet. It's peer-to-peer. It's outside the banking system. There's no permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours. You can get it at wallet.rumble.com or the QR code you see on screen, or just go to the App Store on your phone or tablet and download the Rumble wallet. Thank you very much to them, and thank you very much to everyone here. Now, you guys, I have to let you know, I will not be on the air tomorrow because I have an appointment during the time that I would otherwise be live, so I won't be able to do the show. So I apologize for that, but you can bet that I'm going to come back bigger, badder, and better than ever on Thursday, of course, at 5 p.m. And I will also be live at 4 p.m. on Badlands with my friends Frank and Adel on Taking It Back. So you can feel free to join me there as well if you feel like you didn't get your fix of red pill news the day before. So let me just make sure I didn't miss anything over here. I love that we got the Beastie Boys rant. That was great. And Northern Pike said he was just joking. I read it, but I didn't say thank you for the rant. Let me see. All right. So thank you very much to Sir Lurks-a-Lot for the cookie. Thank you to Sir Lurks-a-Lot for another cookie. I appreciate you. All right, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill News, and I hope that you have a happy, lovely, successful evening with your loved ones, and go do something with yourself. Get outside. Go touch some grass. I'm going to go walk the dogs right now before it gets too dark. Actually, I think I'm too late. Either way. All right. I will see everyone later. Peace. Have a great night. Bye-bye.